Good morning. My name is Adriana Salinas, and I want to talk to you about socioeconomic levels and how it affects education and our students' education. So, historically, people who were able to go to school and get an education were rich, or they had some level of power. Their parents were able to pay for school, or they just had power in the person that they were, which was usually white. And everyone else had to do without it school because of laws or the fact that their parents could not afford to send them to school, or that it was not beneficial to send them to school because they needed to help out with their family. You think about different laws that existed to prevent people from going to school and getting an education, or the idea of private schools having to pay large amounts of money to send your child or a relative to a good school to get an education versus sending them to a the school neighborhood and not getting the best education. So it's a lot of factors in socioeconomic levels and how it can hinder someone's education or it can help them. So I currently teach at Chavez High School in the southeast Houston, Texas. We are a fairly big school, almost like 3,000 students, where the majority of them are on free or reduced lunch. We are Title I, and the majority of our students are minorities. They're Hispanic, African American, Asian, and then we have, kind of sporadic burst of students throughout the year from other South American countries. And so the majority of the students there are not coming from families of high socioeconomic level. And me being a graduate from Chavez High School and from that neighborhood, I also have personal experience with that there. My parents were not rich by all means and could not afford, to send me to another high school because, it was just not in our budget, or it was just something that would cause more stress on an already stressed out household. So a big issue, of course, is when you're higher up in the socioeconomic levels, you're able to give your your children, if you're a parent, give your kids a better chance at education, or give them a better education. You can provide them with tutors. You can provide them with one-on-one services. Their schools have just more resources. Sometimes, like, people like to say, better educators there. And when you go to schools in very urban areas where a lot of the students there are coming from tough backgrounds, those schools typically don't have all the same resources that a school in the rich part of town has. So it causes a very big disconnect in one place like Houston. Are all students getting the same level of education? Are they all receiving the same amount of resources? And I believe they're not. I believe a lot of times there's this injustice happening between what the rich kids get and what the poor students get. So I think rich students, they tend to go to schools that just get more money, from budget or from, PTA, or able to, have private investors come in to give them money. On the other hand, where, schools that really have to rely on like Title I don't always get that opportunity. And I was talking to a colleague the other day where she was telling me that she was a volleyball coach, and how her volleyball students were so amazed when they went to this other middle school that had this beautiful gym, and they had all the same uniform, and they were just so well put together. And then here they come in with mismatched uniforms. They didn't even have a gym. They had, when they were in their home school, they had to be bused to another school to do practice. So it's just like seeing little things like that and hearing things like that really show like how students even acknowledge that their level of education is not going to be the same when it comes to a student who is coming from a higher socioeconomic background. And the another point is, I was thinking about court cases that really highlighted the unfairness of the educational system. And if you think about segregation, you think about a lot of cases where Hispanic or Mexican American students were given less because of who they were versus a school where it's majority Caucasians were given better supplies, better resources, and then a school where it was majority Mexican American students received less, right? They were in a basically condemned building. They didn't have all the supplies, and that's something that we see today. I see it. I have to do a lot of donors choose, and have to do a lot of my own funding to provide my students in my classroom with what I think they deserve and need. Well, when I have friends who are teachers that are in other school districts, they don't even have to, ask twice, and they're already giving these things, and they're like, oh, you don't have money for that, or that's not built in. So it can get very frustrating. So supports in rich schools are abundant, right? They have tutors, they have SAT prep, they have teacher like assistants, and they have all these other things that schools in poor areas don't. We really don't have much resources and supports outside of what we do in our classroom to help our students. I have designated tutorial times, but when it comes to how can I help this population of students or these students who are struggling with this, is there someone in the district that I can go to, or is there someone on campus that I can go to? And usually there's not. It's you have to do as much as you can. We do have the ESL program, but even some of those students don't receive the full extent of what the services they need are. And I know in other school districts, like here in Houston, Clear Creek, they have a specialist in everything, and their class sizes are a lot smaller, and they could be able to do those one-on-one things to support those students who are suffering academically, while in other schools we have classes of almost 40 students, and we don't have a co-teacher there to help facilitate that individual need for some of the students. And I just think funding in HISD in Texas needs to really be rethinked and reimaged with keeping in mind, how can we provide our students with the best education? Where can we eliminate maybe positions that are unnecessary, or figure out ways to do more for our students rather than pay our administrators more, or cut things from schools like art so that we can have funding for other things. But it's going to be an ongoing issue, and we've seen it in history. We've seen great strides in education, but we also seen moments where we kind of go back in time and we're like, okay, we're not doing as much as we can to give our students a fair education and be able to overcome their obstacles, which is what a lot of them are just trying to do. And if we can't be a hand that puts them in that direction, then we're definitely doing an injustice to them and to the education that they deserve.